Hello and welcome. I can't do it, guys. Hello and welcome. Today I'm going to be making a new TBR because I feel like in the last few years my reading taste has completely transformed. Like completely. Well, okay. A bit of an exaggeration. I'm still going to be reading fantasy, which is my main genre. But I feel like what I've been looking for in fantasy books, I've just not been finding with the books that I've been reading. And similarly in romance books or in contemporary fiction or in thrillers or in women's fiction, I'm not reading enough of that to get what I want. So I've decided that I'm rebranding. I'm changing book taste. I'm changing what I'm reading. I'm still going to be reading a bit of the old stuff because I do love it. And don't get me wrong, it's not that I'm not enjoying what I'm liking, it's that I've not found a 5-star at all this year, I don't think. I could be telling a bit of a fib, but it definitely doesn't feel like it, apart from Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, which is, I would say, fits in the genre of what I'm going to be moving towards through this TBR. No other book has been 5 stars. I've been enjoying what I'm reading. I have a lot of good recommendations. I've got a lot of 4-star reads, which is still really good. But for that 5-star read, I feel like I need to broaden my horizons. So I've got my trusty notebook here. She's got everything in and it's got my little list of stuff. So I'm going to start with section 1 of this video, which is high fantasy. I don't think it will be a surprise to anyone that I'm adding, well, basically Brandon Sanderson on this list because I've also got The Way of Kings here as well, but I'll speak about that after. What I want to read is the Stormlight Archives, but everyone that I've seen recommend this series and recommend these books say that you should start with the Mistborn trilogy. It's got slight setup for the rest of the Cosmere and also it's a bit more digestible and easy to read. So I've got the first one. As you can see, with basically every single book in this video will have tabs in because I will have read probably 50 pages and either decided, oh, I'm just not in the mood, or I think I'm gonna love this, and so my brain logically decides, let's not read it then. I can't explain it, I don't know why it happens, but my brain just hates to bring myself joy. So the first 2 things on this list are going to be The Final Empire and The Way of Kings. The Mistborn trilogy, I feel like I'm going to struggle on the whole in this video to give a synopsis for these books because I tend to go into books quite blind. But what I can tell you is that this starts with the traditional villain has already won. So like there was a chosen one, there was this massive battle and the hero lost and the villain won, and now the society they live in is what it's like to live when you do lose the war. And I also know that they use metal as magic, so I don't really know the ins and outs, but I know like different metals have different strengths or different like levels of magic. And I know one character in this book is a street thief. And I'm pretty sure her name's Vin, but it doesn't really say on the back. So that's The Final Empire. And then the Stormlight Archives I actually don't know anything about. All I know is that I've not seen someone read this book and give it less than 5 stars. The vibes it gives, even though I don't actually know anything about it, the vibes that it gives me is exactly what I'm looking for, like a classic high fantasy, entirely new world, like very traditional fantasy vibes. Like it gives Aragon, but also Game of Thrones, which may or may not be on this list as well. Like just the classic OG fantasy vibes, and that's really what I'm looking for. And I love a long book. Long books I hold dear because the longer the book, the more time you spend with the characters. And if I spend a lot of time with a character, I will fall in love with the series because I end up falling in love with the characters, and that's what's most important to me. Obviously, some books can be long and have nothing valuable in them and they can be 1-star reads, but the majority of long books that I've read, I've ended up loving. So I'm excited. Up next, we have got Game of Thrones. That's also, all of these books were on this shelf, so it's looking a bit bare. That's this is Fire and Blood, which is what House of the Dragon was kind of based off, but this is actually the first book in the series. And Game of Thrones, I've not watched the TV show, I've not read the books. I know like various spoilers, and I don't think any important ones apart from in the show. Daenerys's plot line I kind of know, especially the ending of it, but I'm pretty sure that's not the same as in the books. Well, I know this series is unfinished, which is not fun. I also don't know much. I don't know much about this. I know snippets, but I couldn't give a synopsis. I know there's dragons in it. I know the Targaryens are a house. I know there's 7 thrones, I think. And I think the Iron Throne is what everyone is, like when one person takes all of them. I truly have no clue. I just know that I want a long series. I don't really care that it's not finished, to be honest, because I'll just read what I have and make the rest up in my mind. So I know I've got a lot of books to read. I know I've got a series that I can watch after. And I just feel like this sort of genre of fantasy is what I love, but I've not really read it. So I can't say that, but I just have a feeling. I also, on this list, would have added, like, I think it's John Gwynne and Joe Abercrombie and, like, all the other big, like, kind of male fantasy authors. But I don't own their books, and I don't want this TBR to be hundreds of books long. So I thought this would be a good place to start with my physical TBR, see how it goes, and then take a deep dive. I also have the Greenbone saga here because I've read 365 pages of this book and then I decided to stop. I don't know why, because I was loving it. This trilogy, I know for a fact it's going to become like a new fave. Whether it becomes like a god tier series, who knows? But I have loved what I've read so far. I just love that Fonda Lee is a genius. I remember when I was reading the first like 3 chapters, I could not tell you a single thing that was going on. It was so confusing, but once I got past that, I just fell in love. I think her writing is immaculate. I think the plot and like the premise for the story is so good. I'm just obsessed. This I can give you a blurb on. So in this world, jade is like, it's similar to metal in the Final Empire. It's kind of what gives you power. So the more jade you have, the stronger you are. There's 2 rival gangs on this island, and basically the rival gangs fight. no, it's a lot more. There's a bigger story than that. So the family we follow, I actually don't know which ones we follow. We follow one of the gangs, and the leaders of it are all siblings. It's like a family legacy kind of gang. And we explore their dynamics a lot, and then their conflict with their rival gang. And it's shocking. Fonda Lee is not afraid to shock. She really isn't. There was a few things that happened in this book, and I was sat there. I had to stop and look at the wall and process, because I was so, like, I just so did not see that coming. But so I really want to finish this series. Well, finish this book and then finish the trilogy as well, because I've only heard that it gets better from here. The Wheel of Time is another one of those big classic series that every fantasy nerd has read, and I haven't. Well, I did get 200 pages in and then stopped because I loved it, because my brain just doesn't make any sense. This is the stunning like American paperback edition, so it's super floppy and gorgeous to read from. I had heard of this series when I first started reading actively as a teenager, so not just like middle grade and Harry Potter basically. It was around 2019, I think. I started watching Murphy Napier, and she was the first booktuber that I found ever. And a lot of her videos are private now. I don't think you can go further back than 3 years, but this was in like 2018, 2019, and she was reading this series, and I was like, oh my goodness, I need to read that. So I bought this all the way back then, and then I never read it. And then I heard the TV show was coming out, and I was like, oh my goodness, I need to read it for the TV show. Still didn't read it, watched the TV show instead. So I do know basically all of what happens in this book, if it's similar to the TV show. I know there were quite a few changes, but those changes I'm aware of, so I know what to expect when I read this. The premise of it, it's a very complex world. That's what I find hard to give synopses of fantasy books. We have, our main characters are from this little village, basically in the middle of nowhere. And there was a prophecy that was, what was actually the prophecy? The dragon. That the dragon was going to be born to defeat the Dark One. So the dragon is kind of like the chosen one. And there's 3 people in the book. So in the book and in the show it's different. One has 3, one has 5, and I don't remember which is which. But essentially there's a few people that fit this role, and their village gets attacked and basically everyone gets slaughtered. And one of the, what are they called? It's like a witch clan. Oh no. Basically, the only people that can channel magic, well, allowed to channel magic in this world is women, and they have a name. I don't remember the name, but it's like a name for all the witches. And if men channel it, they go insane and super powerful and they get killed. So one of the female witches comes to escort them to the White Tower. I think it's where all the witches get trained, to help the dragon, obviously, whichever one ends up being, and also some of the girls that come with them to train as witches. So that's kind of the premise. So it's like a journey book. I think the first one is mainly just them traveling. Obviously, coming across a lot of obstacles on the way, but it just sounds like the premise of this series. And it's also like 13 books. Robert Jordan started it and then he died and Brandon Sanderson finished it. So I just know I'm in for a good time. I know I'm in for some good writing, some big plots, and I can't wait to read the whole series because I just know I'm gonna love it. The other two series I have written down, I don't actually own them. So the first one is the Poppy War trilogy. I read the first one on my Kindle and it was insane. I think I gave it like 4.5 stars or something like that. It wasn't quite 5 stars for me because I don't know why. I feel like I just have to get that feeling for it to be 5 stars. But it was impeccable. R.F. Kuang is truly a genius. I've got another book by her on this list just because of how much I want to consume everything she writes. So I want to continue. So the Dragon Republic, also on the list. The premise of the Poppy War is we have Rin, who she's very, very poor, lives in the countryside. It's based upon the Opium Wars, so it's like a historical fantasy. She lives in a mythical country, but it reflects like where the Opium Wars actually happened. And so she lives in the rural countryside. She's really poor, and her parent, well, I think it's her foster parents. I think she's an orphan. Yeah, she's an orphan, and her foster parents are horrible people, and they're basically trying to sell her to run their drug business. And she makes a deal with them that if she passes, I think it's the kid, I've forgotten all the names for everything because it has its own language basically, but it's this test to get into the military, and she says if she passes that, they can't sell her. So she trains for it and she ends up getting into the highest level military academy and going to train there, and that is rare. Like normally it's nobility and extremely high class privileged people that end up going. So when she goes, she faces a lot of discrimination for her appearance because she has a darker skin than everyone else because she's from the countryside. Also for her social status, she was literally a no one, she's an orphan, but she ends up becoming really super powerful. And so you follow her in the academy setting in the first novel, and then the ending happens, and now I'm excited. I'm really excited to read the Dragon Republic. Rin is only comparable to me, is the only character I can think of that somewhat resembles her is Aelin, but I also think Rin is even more morally grey, even more ruthless, even more powerful. So that is a statement coming from me because Aelin is one of my favourite FMCs of all time. But Rin is just an icon. She truly is, and I cannot wait to read her story. The final one is a big one. I do want to read The Lord of the Rings. So I've got The Hobbit and I'm going to start with that because it's the prequel. And I know like, oh, it might be wrong because that's not the publishing order, but I'm just going to start with The Hobbit because it's small and it's quite, I've heard it's a lot more readable than the actual Lord of the Rings trilogy, so it'll give me an introduction to J.R. Tolkien. But then I'll start the Fellowship of the Ring and do the whole trilogy. I've not watched any of the movies. I don't know any of the plot. I know like the world kind of because all of my brothers and sister and my dad are all avid Lord of the Rings fans. So I kind of know the vibes, but I don't actually know any of the plot at all. So I can't even give you a synopsis. I know there's rings made that can make you evil if you wear them, and the main character in the actual trilogy is on a journey to either collect them all or take one somewhere, I don't know, but I know he goes on a journey and he has one, and that is literally it. Like, I'm truly oblivious, so I'm trying to remain that way because it's obviously such a popular series, everyone knows everything, but somehow I don't, so I want to keep it that way and soak it all in for the first time I read it. The second section of this video, well, of this TBR, is essentially just normal fantasy that I've not read yet, but that sounds like what I want to be reading. More fantasy with maybe some romantic subplots, maybe a romance in it. I'm not really sure, but the reasons it's so popular is not for the romances in it, and that's what I've been looking for recently because I feel like I really struggle with romantasy to get the fantasy part that I want. I love romantasy books. I will continue to read them, but I'm also looking for in-depth fantastical world, hence the high fantasy new era that I'm going to be entering. But these are just some normal fantasy books. They're not necessarily like high fantasy, mega big and amazing, but I'm still really interested in reading them. First on this list we have, oh, I'm going to knock the pile, soz. We have Babel, again by R.F. Kuang. This, I'm so excited to read this. It is quite literally everything I want in a book. I kind of know the premise. This orphan from Canton, okay, yeah. So he becomes orphaned in Canton after a plague hits, and this old white man basically gives him loads of books to learn and teaches him languages, and then takes him from Canton back to England and trains him from being a young boy to be fluent in, so like I think there's quite a few languages. He's definitely fluent in Latin and Greek, and then I'm pretty sure he probably learned French and other stuff. Eventually he can enroll in Oxford and work in Babel, which is like, I think it's the translation tower. Let me have a look, because they do have really good maps. It's where the Royal Institute of Translation is. So there's that aspect of the historical normal world stuff, and then also there's a hint of magic. So in this world, I'm pretty sure it's silver that can be used to create magic. So they'll silver work things and then enchant them, and then that silver has this enchantment that works or whatever. I just can't explain magic, guys, don't hate me. And so I think whilst he's at Oxford, he discovers that there's a lot of social commentary in this, which I love. I love when a book has social commentary. I just think political literature is so important, especially in the times we're in. So this talks a lot about colonialism, racism, the diaspora experience, a lot of stuff around that, which I find really interesting, and I also think is really important, especially now. I just think it's going to be so interesting. So I'm a literature student. I'm going to do literature at university, and this kind of world of being in old Oxford, like the classism that comes with Babel, the really, really bad colonialism. I know colonialism is a big thing in this, and I can't wait to read about it because I think it's so important. The history of literature is to be criticised as well as renowned, because nothing's perfect, and I think it's just going to be so interesting. So that is definitely getting read soon. Next up we have Ariadne, which it's not really a fantasy because it's a retelling of Greek mythology, so that's kind of its own genre in itself, but I would class it as fantasy. This is about Theseus and the Minotaur. So Ariadne is the princess that gives Theseus the thread to lead him through the labyrinth, and that's basically it in the original myth. I don't want to spoil the rest of this book in case you don't know the myth, but she does come up a bit more in future, but she's basically like a no one. So this book, kind of the goal, I've read an interview by Jennifer saying it, and she said the goal was to give a voice to Ariadne, tell her story, and also reveal the kind of extreme misogyny that happens in Greek mythology. I did a 5,000 word essay on how feminism has impacted the retelling of Greek mythology, and over doing that essay with some other novels that I picked, I found that it's really insane how women in Greek mythology were treated, how they were represented by Homer or by whoever retold them at the time, and I just find it so fascinating. So I love me a feminist Greek mythological retelling, because I love hearing the other side of the story and kind of seeing authors take creative license to change the myth for the better, in my humble opinion. So this is going to be really cool. Next we have A Reaper at the Gates. So I've read An Ember in the Ashes, which is the first book, and I loved it. This is more just your classic YA fantasy with quite a big romance. I would say it's possibly a romantasy. Yeah, to be honest, it probably is a romantasy, but this is one of those that I've read the first one and I know I love, so I'm gonna carry on. So I've got Reaper at the Gates, and then there's I think 2 more books after this. To be brief about the first one, in this world we have the government in power is essentially very corrupt, and so we have the son of the general of the war academy, so he's supposed to be basically evil because he's from the people that are in power, and a rebel spy that's entering this academy as a maid for the general. So the general's son, and then the general's maid, who is actually spying on her and trying to find out stuff so that they can overthrow the government. They're both at the War Academy together. So you get an academy setting, but one of them isn't actually in the classes or in training, and you see them meet, and you see the son kind of realize what's going on, and you see her as she tries to navigate not getting caught and dying. And that's the first book, and this is the second one, so I can't really give you a synopsis on this one, but a lot of stuff happened in the first one, so I can't wait to see where it goes. I feel like it's very unstable having these little paperbacks at the bottom, so I am actually just going to switch it round. It's not in chronological order, which is really annoying me, but I don't want the whole stack to fall over and die. We also have The Bear and the Nightingale. This I don't know anything about. I know it's based on Russian myths and like Russian legends and stuff, but I actually don't know a single thing. I just heard that it's really good. And I've forgotten her name. Meg is reading. I think that's her name. I don't know, but she's like this really cool girl that loves mysteries, and she loves a bit of dark academia and cozy fantasy. And I know she loves this. And her like love for this trilogy is essentially what made me buy it. I actually don't know a thing about it, but I put it on the list because it strikes me as a fantasy that's very unique, which is what I've been looking for. And also, in fact, let me just read the back and you'll see why, because I've not read it in ages, but I remember reading the back of this and thinking, oh, I want to read it. In a village at the edge of the wilderness of northern Russia, where the winds blow cold and the snow falls many months of the year, an elderly servant tells stories of sorcery, folklore, and the winter king to the children of the family, tales of old magic frowned upon by the church. But for the young, wild Vasya, these are far more than just stories. She alone can see the house spirits that guard her home and sense the growing forces of dark magic in the woods. Is that not so cool? I feel like that's not really a synopsis, but just the vibes of the blurb. I feel like a lot of these, I do think I'm going to wait until autumn time to read them, because they all just give such cozy, rainy day fire vibes, and I just can't wait. Now, if you watched my other video, which was my list of god tier books, you'll know The Night Circus is my favourite book, basically, of all time. And The Starless Sea is Erin Morganson's only other book. I am so far into this. I got, 180 pages into this, and it was 5-star from the first page. Like, I was obsessed from the beginning. But then I got in a reading slump, and I was like, I am not letting my reading slump ruin my experience with this book. So I put it down, but that was like 3 years ago, and I never picked it back up because I was so scared. At the beginning, it was because my reading slump lasted for like a year. And then after that, I was like, I'm going to have to start from the beginning again, and I don't want to do that. I know I'm going to give this 5 stars already, I know. But I just need to actually read the whole thing first. The Starless Sea and The Night Circus are truly my reading tastes in a book. Very whimsical, very flowery writing, just pure magic. That is my favourite type of fantasy, which is what drew me to this, because it talks about folklore and legends and fairy tale stories, and that is just my bread and butter. That is my top favourite book, and then under that would be a huge epic high fantasy series that's like 10 books long and feels like you can immerse yourself in the world. They're like my top 2, but this is my favourite type of book. She's on the list. There's not really... Okay, there actually is a synopsis. We follow Zach, the main character, and he goes to a library, checks out a book, starts reading it, and realises it's about his life, but he's never told anyone a lot of the things that he was reading in it, and so he's very confused. And then as he reads more of the book, things that haven't happened that aren't about him are also in the book. So he sets out on a mission to find out who wrote it, who published it, where it came from. So you have the narrative of Zach now, and then you also have excerpts from the book that he's reading. Some of those pages are my absolute favourite pieces of literature I've ever read in my whole life. It's honestly fantastic, and so I can't wait to actually I'm going to restart it and just read this book on the whole. I'm also going to put this lower down because she's a hardback, so I don't want to crush all my babies. Okay. I'm going to start a new pile because she's getting rather large. Next we have The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, which, surprise, surprise, I've also started reading. I'm just over 150 pages in this book, but can you see the amount of annotations? Like, I read this quite recently, so I will just continue from where I've left off because it's just easy to remember. It's only been a few months. The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue follows Addie LaRue in the 1600s. Maybe it's earlier than that, I'm not too sure, in France, and she's entering an arranged marriage that she really doesn't want to be in. She's getting forced into it. So the night before her wedding, or maybe the night of her wedding, I'm not too sure, she runs into the forest and she prays to the gods saying, please save me from this marriage. I just want to live forever and not be responsible for anything. And because it's after dark, this is when the not very nice gods come out. A god answers her prayers and he comes and she makes a deal with him that she'll live forever. But because he's a little trickster, she realizes that no one will remember her. She can't leave a mark on the world at all. So she can't, if she threw something at a wall and it smashed, in like 5 seconds it will have replaced itself where it originally was. She can't write her name down. She can't write anything and it stay there. She can't make anything. And every time she speaks to someone, as soon as she leaves their presence, they completely forget. So she could be with someone for like 5 hours, but if they popped to the bathroom, they would forget who she was. And you follow her for the next 300 years about living her life. So it's kind of no plot, just vibes, but it's very profound. The writing is my favourite type of writing. It's the beautiful, flowery, lyrical writing that I just love. It follows her life, and then one day, in like the present modern day, she meets someone and he remembers her the next time he sees her, and that is obviously like, what the heck, she's been living for 300 years and no one remembers her, and now this one random boy does. So the story kind of goes from there, but it takes you a while to get there because that's only just happened and I'm this far in. V. Schwab does love to ramble on, but I love to read it. Like it's a very slow start, but I just soak it up and I just adore it. It's my literal crack. This type of writing is my everything. I absolutely need to finish this. I also think this will be 5 stars. Maybe not a full 5 stars because I'm not as attached to Addie LaRue as I am the characters in Starless Sea, but they do give off similar vibes, but they're not similar at all. So take with that what you will, but she's next on the list. Oh wait, I'm starting a new one, aren't I? I'm gonna have to maneuver this. And finally on this list, we have Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. This, as you can see, I also have started, but I started this like 5 years ago, and I don't know why I'd never carried on, but I've always wanted to read it since then. I don't know how many people watch books of Chloe, but she's called Chloe Bunny now. Love her. She's such an icon and I love all of her friends. This used to be her favourite book back in 2019, and that's kind of when I started watching her. And the way she described this book is similar to the Starless Sea, the Night Circus, the Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. Very magical, very whimsical, very flowery writing, and just a stunning time and very immersive, and that's exactly what I want. This book is about Laszlo Strange, and he is a dreamer. He, since he was a child, has been fascinated with the lost city of Weep. The kind of the kick-off point of this book is that he gets the opportunity to travel there, and I've not read any further than that, but I also don't think it goes any further than that in the blurb. But it is just a beautiful, beautiful story, and I can't wait to read it. Okay, I do have to get the notebook out now because a lot of the rest of the books I don't own yet. So the next section of this little TBR list we've got going on is just contemporary fiction. The first book on my list is Tuesdays with Maury. I recently saw Steph Ball read this, and she gave it 5 stars, and the way she described it sounds like something I would eat up. Because if I'm not reading fantasy, I'm not reading because I haven't entered this era yet, but I want to be reading books that are very thoughtful, very thought-provoking, have different outlooks on life, will change the way I think, change the way I view things. Like, I want a very profound contemporary book, and that is exactly how Tuesdays with Maury sounds. I don't think it's very much fiction at all, because I'm pretty sure it's like the author's own experience. It's basically this man, I think he's around his 30s or 40s. He's got a decent job, he's got a nice family, I think. He's very just averagely living his life. And he just feels completely unsatisfied. Or not unsatisfied, but he focuses so much on money and material value that he doesn't really soak in what life's really about. And he speaks to his old, I think it's sociology professor, but one of his old professors that's like Okay, I think the lighting will look a little different, so I apologise for that, but we need to get this filmed. Now I've completely forgotten where I was. Tuesdays with Maury. So the main character ends up speaking to this old professor who's basically on his deathbed, he's dying, and they kind of converse about life, they share their viewpoints, and that's the whole novel, and the teacher ends up writing it down. And so that's why I think it's the author's real life experience. Also from the quotes that Steph was sharing from it, the old professor has a lot of similar views to me, so it will just be so nice to read about. And I assume there'll be other stuff that I'll learn as well. And it just sounds so wholesome and so cute, and it's not very long at all. So I think that's going to be on my summer reading list. Next up we have Matt Haig. So I want to read The Midnight Library, but at the moment my current read right now is The Life Impossible by him. I'm not very far in, I'm only like that much in. Both of his books have sounded really intriguing to me. The Midnight Library is very popular, I'm sure you've all heard of it, but it's about a woman who in the very beginning decides to commit suicide. She's really unhappy in her life, and instead of the afterlife she ends up in this big library, and she finds that each book tells her life story if she'd made one decision different. So it goes through all the alternative lives she could have lived. And I think that's such a good concept. I think it allows for a lot of really important discussions about life and the meaning of life. And then The Life Impossible is about a 70-year-old woman who, one of her old friends from like her young adulthood, dies and leaves her a villa in Ibiza in her will. And she's not spoken to this woman in like 50 years, so she's really confused. And she goes out to Ibiza, and there's a bit of a mystery aspect because the environment surrounding the woman's death, whatever it is, her old friend's death is quite suspicious. Things aren't adding up. The town she's in general, everyone's a bit strange, everyone's a bit unique, everyone's kind of keeping secrets from her. So you've got the mystery aspect, you've got her at 70, like basically rediscovering herself and going on adventures and living her best life. And I imagine there'll also be very interesting discussions about life, about the purpose of life, about friendships, about finding joy. So another very introspective kind of novel, which I am excited to read. A short addition to this list is The Ministry of Time, because I genuinely do not know anything about it. When I know most of these I've got the general gist of, and I've said I don't know anything. The Ministry of Time I actually don't know anything. I just know it's won a lot of awards, it's been really popular, and it's supposed to be quite thought-provoking, and that's the only thing I know. I don't know the premise, I don't know whether the main character's a boy or a girl, I don't know anything. I thought I'd feature it in the video because it is on the list, but I can't really tell you much about it. I've put Beartown on this list because that's a Frederick Backman book that I'm going to start with, but I want to read most of his books. They all seem so interesting. As an author, he's had so many good reviews. Like, everyone loves that man, and I'm sure there's a good reason for it. So Beartown is about, I think it's a small village in Canada. It's small and it's cold there. And it's a very like small tight-knit community, and they all live for the college hockey. Maybe it's not college, but the hockey team for that village. The villagers there will ride or die for that hockey team. Hockey is everyone's life. It's a small town, so gossip spreads fast. Something quite shocking happens in that town, and the book kind of explores that and goes from there. I'm pretty sure everyone I've seen that's read Beartown has given it 5 stars. It's insane. Like, Frederick Backman as an author, most booktubers or people I've met in real life that love him adore him. Like, there's not just, oh, he's a good author. Like, it's 5 stars, maybe 4.5 for some of them. Like, it's insane. Similarly, Kristen Hanna, I'm going to start with The Nightingale because that's the most popular, that's the one everyone tells me to read, but I've also The Great Alone. There's another Kristen Hanna book as well. But I'm putting The Nightingale officially on this list because that also intrigues me a lot, as I used to be a history student, I'm a history girl. History is better than geography, don't fight me. And I'm pretty sure it's about World War II, and it's 2 women in World War II, and it kind of covers their story. That's basically all I know. But Kristen Hanna, on the whole, I just heard is a fantastic author. She writes amazingly about the female experience and female friendships and sisterhood and everything that comes with being a woman, and that sounds delectable to me. I want to be reading about that, so she's also on this list. And then Everything I Know About Love. Technically it's non-fiction, but she's in the fiction section because she doesn't really fit in any of the other sections. Once again, I have started this before, got 50 pages in, but I do feel like this is a book you can kind of read in sections because it's non-fiction. It's kind of a collection of short stories discussing her life and the lessons she learned from it. I want to write a book like this when I'm like 50 or 60 and I've got loads of life experience under my belt, because I just think reading about someone else's personal experience just feels like a big hug from your older sister that you never had. And it's going to give me so much advice, it's going to give me so many lessons, and who doesn't love a book like that? Finally, we're moving on to classics because I'm starting my coursework for English Lit A-level and I need to read some classics so that I can do my coursework about them. First one is Emma. Once again, I've read her before. I got up to page 100 and this is annotated. I love this book so far. I don't think I'll actually be doing my coursework on this, but I want to read it and it's in the classics section, so I'm putting her in here. Emma is about a woman called Emma, shock horror. She's from a very wealthy family. She prides herself in being a matchmaker, so she takes girls under her wings, gives them a bit of a makeover, and then pairs them up with a man, and she has no interest in getting married until she does. And it's just a very fun time. I want to read all of Jane Austen's books. I've not read any of them all the way through so far. I started with Emma because I know Pride and Prejudice quite well, so I was kind of like, will I be bored reading the book? Who knows? Also, I think I'm going to love it at the same time. I'm kind of in two minds. Do I think because I already know it so well I won't enjoy the book? Or do I think I'm obsessed with the movie, so of course I'm going to love the book? That's the kind of two opinions I have. So I've just been putting it off. So I started with Emma. I've got Persuasion, I've got Emma, I've got Pride and Prejudice, I've got Northanger Abbey, and I think that's the four. And then I also have a big stunning like bind up. In fact, let me get it. She's in a horizontal stack and there's loads of books above her, so I won't get her out. It's a stunning bind up of all of Jane Austen's novels, and I'm never going to read from it because I would hate to read from a book that big, but she's pretty for the display. Next on my list is The Picture of Dorian Gray. I am reading this one for coursework, but I do have a personal interest in it as well. I'd obviously heard of it before. Like, I'd been open to reading it beforehand, and then once I kind of was narrowing down what I need to read for my coursework, I thought, why not? It's a short book. It's about Dorian Gray, who someone paints this portrait of him and he kind of makes this deal with the devil that the portrait can age and he'll keep the beauty. So he kind of swaps, because obviously normally portraits a moment in time that lasts forever and humans grow up and die. So he kind of switches with the portrait and you follow his life and his life lessons that he learns and stuff. And I do know what happens because we did like this intro to classics at school and we watched summaries for loads of famous classics, but I still want to read it. I still need to because I'm possibly using it for my coursework. It sounds really interesting to me, and I do want to be a lot more well versed in the classic authors, especially as I go on to study English Lit at uni. We have another big name. We've got Charles Dickens. I'm putting Great Expectations on here just because I'm not reading Tale of Two Cities because it's like 800 pages. This I'm not that excited for, I won't lie, but I do have to read her for coursework, so I'm just going to pretend that I'm super excited, put it on my list of reinvention and hope that I love it. I do know that The Infernal Devices is based heavily on this, so maybe I will love it because that's one of my god tier series, like favourite of all time. It essentially follows Pip, who is an orphan and was very poor, and then gets given this huge donation in money and sent to high society to learn how to be a gentleman. There's lots of cool characters in this. I'm sure many of you know she's not exactly an underground book, but I've got to read it, so she's on the list. Next classic, we have Frankenstein. I'm not even too sure I'm going to use this for coursework because I don't think I'm going to go down the gothic fiction route, but I've wanted to read it anyway. I've got this stunning edition because it just really intrigues me. I want to read Frankenstein, I want to read Dracula, but I've only got this one, so I'll start with Frankenstein. Very excited. I don't even know the synopsis, I just know Frankenstein makes a monster out of dead people, and that's about it. And then the final book, I know technically Secret History isn't a classic, but it's a modern classic and it fit in this section best. So I'm reading this for coursework, but I've also wanted to read this for so long anyway. As you can see, I have started it in the past, but I'm restarting it with my critical reading lens and my coursework lens because I'm I'm 99.99999% sure I'm going to be using The Secret History. In fact, this isn't the final book because I have got one more on here. But yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm going to be using this for my coursework, so I need to restart and take actual academic notes instead of notes like so true, which was, I just turned to this page, I've underlined it and gone so true. That's not really going to help me. So I have restarted it and I'm on page 12 at the moment, but I did get quite far in. This follows a group of friends at, what school is it they go to? They go to a university, and they're all at university and they're studying, like, I think it's just classic literature in general. That's all I know. I mean, it opens with a murder where you have no idea, well, you do know who killed them, but you have no idea how it transpired, and I think it retells the story from the beginning to tell you how that transpires. But it's like the blueprint for dark academia. It's got a lot of cool themes in it, and I'm very sure I'm going to be using this in my coursework, so I just need to pick one of the other classics that I've got on here. And then my final classic is The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. I actually don't know anything about that classic at all. I just know, I'm pretty sure the woman goes insane in it, but she's also on the list, so I can't forget about her. And that is essentially my recipe for a new 5-star. Maybe not so much the classic section, but if I'm going to read anything on this TBR, it will be those, because I have to. And I love completing a TBR, so I'm going to do anything to help myself out. If you have any recommendations from this kind of genres that I've been describing, please let me know in the comments, because I would love some recommendations. I'm running out. These books I have left are most of my unread books on my shelves, so I do need some more books to get through. But this will definitely take me to the end of the year and beyond. I'm not a very fast reader. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope I'll see you in the next one. Bye!